The Warborn flagship drifted above the burned world like a giant shadow. Its hull was black steel, carved with marks of old victories, and its engines hummed like a living beast. Inside the command bridge, every Warborn officer stood ready, their armored bodies tall and silent. Red lights blinked over the control panels, warning of failing systems and damaged weapons. Smoke rose from cracked walls, but no one looked away from the main screen. They had all seen defeat before, but never like this. Not against a species they once believed weak. Commander Vorak leaned forward with slow, heavy breaths. His skin was stone gray, rough like old metal, and his eyes glowed faint blue. He was a veteran of 100 conquests, a leader known for breaking enemy worlds within a single cycle. He had never feared anything, not even death. But now something colder than fear crawled inside his chest. The enemy fleet should not have been standing. It should have been dust in the void. Yet the humans remained. Minutes earlier, a strange message had come through their comm system. It was a single voice, calm and steady, speaking Galactic standard with a strange, soft tone. Vorak ordered the message replayed now, and the bridge fell silent as the voice echoed again. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Terran Defense Fleet," the human said. "Before you continue your attack, I want you to think very carefully. What you're doing is not logical. It is not strategic. And it is not survivable." Even through the static, the voice held something sharp, something powerful. Something the Warborn did not understand. A Warborn officer stepped closer. "Commander. Is this a threat from a dying fleet?" "It does not sound like a threat," Vorak said, slowly. "It sounds like a promise." Outside the ship, the battle was fading. Burning ships, Warborn and human, drifted in silence. The humans had fought like creatures who refused to accept defeat, even when outnumbered 10-1. They fought with fire in their eyes and strange machines that refused to die. Every Warborn knew humans were technologically behind, their weapons simple, their ships smaller. By all logic, humans should have been crushed hours ago. But something was wrong. Something the Warborn had not prepared for. The human message continued. "You think you know war," Captain Ward said. "You think you understand strength because you have conquered so many worlds. But humanity is different. We do not break the same way others do. When you destroy our homes. When you hurt our people. We do not run. We do not kneel. We rise. Every time." The voice grew softer, and that softness was somehow worse than anger. "And if you continue this invasion, you will learn exactly what that means." The message ended. The bridge stayed silent. Commander Vorak straightened. What did he mean by that? What is it humans do that others do not? No one answered. Every Warborn in the room had seen the humans fight today. They saw ships continue firing with engines blown apart. They saw human soldiers fight even after losing half their squads. They saw human pilots ram burning fighters into Warborn bombers just to protect transport ships full of civilians. The Warborn lived for war, but they also respected survival. They did not understand sacrifice, not the kind they saw today. A junior officer turned toward the commander. "Sir. The humans are requesting an open channel. They say their captain wants to speak to you directly." Vorak hesitated. A Warborn commander never spoke to an enemy unless victory was near. Direct contact was considered beneath them, unless fear pushed them to it. "Put it through," Vorak said. The screen flickered. A human appeared. He looked small compared to the Warborn, soft skin, no armor, no glowing eyes, no tusks. His uniform was torn, with smoke stains across the shoulders. Behind him, bright sparks and flames showed a ship struggling to stay alive. This human should have looked weak. But he stood tall. Commander Vorak spoke first. "Human. You are surrounded. Your fleet is broken. Your planet is burning. Why do you speak as if you are the one in control?" Captain Ward gave a small, almost tired smile. "Because you made a mistake," he said. "You attacked us without understanding who we are." Vorak growled. "Explain." Ward stepped forward, close to the screen. "You think humans fear death," he said. "You think the threat of destruction scares us. But we don't fear the end the way you do. We fear something else." Vorak's voice tightened. "What?" Captain Ward's eyes hardened. When he spoke, his voice carried across the bridge like thunder. "We fear losing the people we love. And when you make us afraid, we become something you cannot fight." A cold wave passed through the Warborn officers. Something ancient inside them trembled. Ward continued. "You have no idea what you started. You attacked us thinking we were alone. But humanity is never alone. Every colony, every fleet, every outpost, when one of us is hurt, all of us rise." Vorak felt his breath catch. The human leaned closer. So here is what I want you to understand, Commander. You wanted a war. He paused. You just got all of us. The last words landed like a silent explosion. No threat. No shouting. Just truth. The human cut the connection. On the bridge, no one moved. For the first time in their entire history, the Warborn Empire felt something new. A feeling that made the mighty tremble. The moment they heard what the human said. They began to understand their empire might not survive what came next. And that was the moment the Warborn Empire collapsed, long before the humans ever reached their homeworld. The message from Captain Ward did not end the battle. It changed it. Across the Warborn flagship, officers hurried to their stations, trying to understand what had just happened. The soft glow of damaged panels lit their tense faces. Nothing in their long history had prepared them for a moment like this. They had fought great armies, broken grand alliances, crushed rebellions that lasted centuries. They knew fear existed in other species, and they used that fear to win wars. But this time the fear was theirs. Commander Vorak kept silent as he watched the main screen. The human fleet, though broken, did not fall back. They drifted into a defensive line, engines burning weakly, weapons glowing dim, yet every human ship held position. They did not retreat. They did not send distress calls. They looked like a group preparing for something worse than death. The Warborn did not understand. A deep tremor ran through the ship as the engine struggled. Several decks below, explosions shook the hull. Yet Vorak did not move from his command chair. Status of our invasion fleet? He asked. Damaged, an officer said quickly. Too damaged. We have lost over 1/3 of our ships. Another third cannot fire. And Commander. The humans are still holding. A whisper passed across the bridge like cold smoke. The Warborn had expected the humans to surrender or try to escape. Instead, they acted as if they were waiting for something. Vorak stared at the empty space behind the human ships. Nothing was there. No reinforcements. No hidden fleet. No superweapon. Just dark space and scattered debris. He forced himself to breathe slowly. Find out what human worlds are closest. How long until they can send help? Another officer checked rapidly. At least 3 cycles, Commander. They are too far. Vorak nodded, but something inside him twisted. The humans should not have sounded confident. They should not have spoken as if their entire species was already moving toward this battlefield. Something was wrong. On the human flagship, Captain Ward stood in the ruined bridge, leaning slightly on a console to keep his balance. Smoke filled the air. Sparks danced from broken wires. His crew worked in silence, their faces pale but determined. Captain, his second officer whispered, they're scanning the region. They know we have no reinforcements. Ward nodded. His voice was steady. Of course they know. That's the point. His crew exchanged confused looks, but none questioned him. Ward turned his eyes toward the stars. He had played his hand, and now it was time to wait to see if the Warborn understood. No lies were spoken in his message. Everything he said was true. Humanity would rise if pushed. Humanity would unite if threatened. But there was something the Warborn did not know. Something Ward hoped they were smart enough to fear. He whispered to himself, please, let them decide to leave. Back on the Warborn flagship, Vorak rose slowly from his chair. His armor made a faint grinding sound, but the room stayed silent. All eyes were on him. There is something we are missing, he said. Humans should be afraid. They should be begging for terms. Instead, their captain speaks like a leader who already won. He turned to his strategist. What do we know about humans? The strategist hesitated. They are young. They have no empire. They fight without coordination. They have no advanced weapons. They have never faced a species like us. Vorak growled. Then how did they hold this long? No one answered. Images of the battle appeared on the screen, Warborn ships falling to unexpected human maneuvers, human soldiers fighting on burning hulls, pilots who refused to eject even when their ships were half destroyed. The humans did not fight with fear or logic. They fought with something else. One word came to Vorak's mind, something many species lacked. Defiance. One of his senior generals stepped forward. Commander, we must finish this battle before their message spreads. If humans send a call for unity, other species may join them. We must crush them now. Vorak stared at the general. Are you sure? Because I am not. The room froze. Vorak turned his gaze to the human fleet again. I have fought many enemies. I know the smell of a trap. I know when a commander feels cornered. But the human did not sound cornered. He sounded certain. Another officer whispered, perhaps he lied. Perhaps, Vorak said softly. But what if he didn't? The caution in his voice unsettled every Warborn in the room. He finally ordered, "Prepare a long-range scan. I want the entire region mapped. If the humans have nothing behind them, we will know." As the scan began, a deep silence filled the bridge. The machine hummed and clicked, sending waves through the void. Then the results arrived. A trembling officer reported, "Commander. There is nothing. No fleets. No hidden ships. No reinforcements." The whole bridge exhaled. But Vorak did not. "Run it again," he said. They ran it again. The result was the same. Humans were alone. Yet they stood like they had the universe behind them. Vorak lowered his head, deep in thought. Something cold pressed into his mind. A realization forming slowly, painfully. The humans were not fighting because they expected help. They were fighting because they intended to become the help. Vorak whispered to himself, "They fight as if every human everywhere will come for us." For the first time in his long life, he understood the message. The threat was not a fleet. The threat was a species. And they were about to wake it up. The Warborn bridge grew colder as the realization spread. This battle was not the war. This battle was the spark. The scans repeated again and again, each time showing the same answer. There were no human reinforcements hiding in the dark. No secret armada waiting to strike. No backup fleet ready to jump in. Just one damaged human force holding their line with stubborn, impossible strength. Commander Vorak stood still, powerless to make sense of it. His mind felt heavy, and his chest tightened with something he did not want to name. The Warborn Empire had crushed worlds far older and stronger than Earth. Species with fleets 10 times the size of humanity's had begged for mercy. Empires spanning entire star clusters had fallen before the Warborn war machine. Yet here, facing a lone human fleet, Vorak felt the shape of defeat pressing against him. Not because humans outnumbered them. Not because humans were stronger. But because they refused to act like a dying enemy. Vorak's voice came out low. "They believe something. Something we do not understand." His strategist stepped forward. "Commander, with respect. Humans are emotional. They act on hope. Hope is not a weapon." Vorak's eyes narrowed. "No. But determination is." The strategist hesitated. Even he could not deny what they had witnessed. The humans had no logical reason to keep fighting, yet they fought harder the closer they came to death. On the screen, Captain Ward's damaged flagship drifted into view. Fires burned along its hull. One of its engines was completely gone. But the ship still held its position, straight in front of the Warborn fleet. Almost challenging them. Vorak watched the small figure of Ward on the previous recording, the calm voice, the unbroken stare. "No single leader can create this kind of resolve," Vorak muttered. "This is something built into every human." His words unsettled the room. A junior officer spoke carefully. "Commander, if they are alone and broken, then we should finish them before more trouble forms. No matter what bravery they show, they cannot survive a final strike." Vorak opened his mouth to respond, but another officer interrupted sharply. "Commander," he shouted, "incoming transmission from the human flagship. Captain Ward wants to speak again." The bridge froze. Vorak felt a strange heat in his chest. "Put him through." The screen flickered, and Captain Elias Ward appeared once more. He looked worse than before. Smoke curled behind him. A medic stood nearby, wrapping bandages around an injured crew member. Sparks fell from the ceiling as the human ship groaned under internal pressure. Ward looked like a man standing in the center of a collapsing world. But he still stood. His voice came through steady, even calm. "Commander Vorak," he said. "I assume you scanned the region." Vorak swallowed. "We did. You are alone. No reinforcements are coming." Ward nodded slowly. "Good. Then we understand each other." The Warborn officer stared at the screen in disbelief. The human should have sounded desperate or defeated. Instead, he sounded relieved. Vorak felt every instinct inside him scream that this conversation was not normal. "Human," he said carefully, "your position is hopeless. You cannot win this battle." "You're right," Ward replied simply. "We can't." The honesty disturbed the Warborn bridge more than any threat could. Ward took a slow breath. "But that isn't why we're here. We never came to win this battle." Vorak's voice grew rough. "Then why fight?" Ward looked straight into the screen. His eyes were tired but fierce. "To make sure a message is sent." One officer whispered, "A message to who?" Ward continued, ignoring the whisper. "Humans are spread across dozens of colonies. We trade with hundreds of species. Our people live everywhere. And all of them, every single one, will hear what happened today." Vorak felt a cold pressure behind his ribs. Ward spoke again. They will hear about the Warborn Empire. They will hear how you burned our planets, struck our civilians, and killed our families. They will know you came here to take our home. His voice dropped lower. And when humans hear something like that, they don't stay silent. Vorak's jaw tightened. You are speaking of resistance. Ward shook his head softly. No. I'm speaking of unity. The word hit the bridge like a shockwave. Ward continued, almost gently. Humanity is not an empire. We don't have a single leader. We don't have a grand council. We argue. We fight each other. We disagree about everything. Vorak frowned. Then how do you unite? Ward let out a small, almost tired smile. Because deep inside, humans know one truth. When someone threatens one of us, they threaten all of us. A heavy silence filled the Warborn bridge. Ward's voice hardened. When your fleet reached our borders, every colony heard the broadcasts. When your soldiers attacked our cities, every human outpost felt it. And when our people died. He paused. Every human understood what had to happen next. Vorak's chest tightened further. He forced the next question out. And what is that? Captain Ward leaned closer to the screen, his face lit by the glow of fires behind him. Humanity, he said softly, is about to wake up. The Warborn officers shifted uneasily. Something ancient in their instincts recognized danger in the human's tone, not the danger of weapons, but the danger of a species pushed beyond its limit. Ward continued. You think this fight is just between your empire and our small fleet. But soon, you will be facing every human from every world we've ever touched. Merchants. Miners. Scientists. Settlers. Soldiers. All of them. Vorak whispered, not all of them will come. Ward shook his head. You don't understand, Commander. They won't come because they want to. They'll come because they must. His voice grew quiet. You made this personal. And then the human delivered the final blow. We don't have reinforcements coming, Ward said. Not yet. But after today, humanity will start moving. And once we move, we do not stop. The transmission cut, clean, final. The Warborn bridge remained silent. Commander Vorak felt something he had never felt in all his years of war. Dread. Because now he understood. The humans were not defending their world. They were lighting a spark that would ignite their entire species. And the Warborn Empire had just given them the fire. The Warborn flagship felt colder after the human transmission ended. Every officer stood stiff and silent, their armored hands frozen over their controls. Even the hum of the ship seemed quieter, as if the metal itself was unsettled. Commander Vorak did not sit down. He stayed standing, staring at the dark screen where Captain Ward had appeared only moments before. His breathing was slow, controlled, but inside, something boiled. He had led fleets across the galaxy for decades. He had ended rebellions, crushed alliances, defeated powerful enemies. He had seen courage and fear, hope and surrender. But he had never seen an enemy behave like the humans just had. He finally spoke. He cut the transmission himself. That means he is certain his message was enough. A junior officer swallowed hard. Commander. Humans cannot respond quickly. Even if they unite, it will take cycles for any force to reach this region. We know that, Vorak said quietly. The human knows that. Yet he is not afraid. The bridge crew exchanged anxious glances. Fear was not a Warborn trait. But this was not fear, it was confusion mixed with something sharper. The strategist stepped forward. Commander, perhaps the human believes he can bluff us. If we push harder, they will break. Vorak's voice turned rough. Did they look like they would break? No one answered. Everyone had seen the same things, burning ships that refused to fall, wounded soldiers who kept fighting, a captain who smiled while standing in a dying vessel. Vorak paced in front of the screen. Humans fight like death is an inconvenience, not an end. The strategist tried again. They have no reinforcements. If we strike now. Vorak spun around, his voice like a growl. And what if killing this fleet is the mistake? What if destroying them is exactly what the human wants? The room went silent. Then Vorak asked the question none of them wanted to hear. What happens when the humans find out their fleet died fighting us? A cold dread spread through the officers. Humans did not react to loss the way other species did. The Warborn had learned that the hard way in their earlier skirmishes. Humans did not hide after defeat. They did not wait to rebuild. They came back stronger, angrier, more united. And this time, the entire species would know. On the human flagship, the air was thick with smoke. Medical teams rushed through narrow hallways, carrying injured crew on stretchers. Sparks jumped from the walls. The sound of groaning metal echoed like distant thunder. Yet the crew moved calmly, with quiet purpose. They knew the ship might not last much longer, but no one panicked. Captain Elias Ward stood near a cracked viewing window. The stars outside looked cold and peaceful, nothing like the chaos around him. He felt blood running down his sleeve from a cut, but he didn't bother to wipe it away. His second officer approached carefully. "Sir. The Warborn haven't attacked yet." "I know," Ward said. "They're waiting for something." Ward nodded without turning. "They're scared." The second officer blinked, surprised. "Sir, with respect. They outnumber us 3-1. Their ships are stronger. Their weapons are bigger. Why would they be scared?" Ward turned, his face tired but steady. "Because they don't understand us. And what you don't understand is what you fear." The officer hesitated. "Do you really think humanity will answer?" Ward gave a slow smile, small but certain. "They already have." The officer looked confused. Ward continued, his voice calm and sure. "Every human child learns stories about rising after defeat. Every colony teaches that we help each other when the world tries to break us. Every nation, no matter how different, shares the same thing deep inside. We protect our own." He looked out the window again. "When humans hear about this, they will move. Not because some leader commands them to, not because they want revenge." He paused. "But because they can't imagine doing anything else." In his mind, he could already see it, messages traveling across human space, colonies rising from their silence, ships being pulled from dry docks, engineers building new weapons with trembling hands. He could see old flags being pulled from boxes, soldiers volunteering, civilians turning fighters, leaders arguing but ultimately choosing the same path. Humanity, scattered and divided, beginning to turn into something whole. Back on the Warborn flagship, the tension only grew. "Commander!" an officer shouted suddenly. "The humans are powering their forward cannons." Vorak spun around. "What?" "Their weapons are too damaged." "It doesn't matter," the officer said. "They are charging them anyway." The screen edged with the view of the human fleet. A few of their cannons flickered weakly, glowing with unstable light. They were barely functional, but they were preparing to fire. The strategist stepped forward. "Commander, they are provoking us. They want us to attack." Vorak raised a hand. "No. They want us to choose." The room froze again. Vorak stared at the small human lights brightening in the distance. "If we attack, we kill their fleet, but then humanity will come for us with everything they have." "And if we do not attack?" the strategist asked. Vorak's voice was hollow. "Then we retreat. And the galaxy will say the Warborn Empire fled from a broken fleet of humans." Either option was a wound. Either option would change the history of their empire. The officers waited, breath held, as Vorak stepped closer to the screen. He whispered to himself, unsure if the others even heard him. "How did we become afraid of a species so small?" He lifted his head. Because they were no longer facing a fleet. They were facing a future where humanity was united, and coming. Vorak's next decision would decide the fate of the Warborn Empire. And he knew it. Commander Vorak stood frozen at the center of the Warborn flagship's bridge. The display showed the human ships, broken, burning, barely holding together, yet powering their cannons as if they were preparing to strike with full force. It was impossible. It was foolish. But it also felt like a challenge. A silent line drawn between two species. Vorak's thoughts churned like molten iron. Every strategy he had learned through decades of war told him the same thing: finish the enemy. And the threat. Destroy the fleet. But something deeper, something older inside him whispered the opposite. Humans did not act like prey. They acted like predators waiting for a reason to bite. His generals gathered behind him, shifting uneasily. They could feel the tension radiating off their commander. "Commander," one general finally said, "say the word and we end this battle. The humans cannot fire back with real power. Their weapons flicker like dying flames. One solid strike will eliminate them." Vorak nodded slowly, but he did not give the order. Another general stepped forward. "Or we retreat and lose honor. Our empire's enemies will sense weakness. Our subjects will question us. This could become a political disaster." Vorak turned sharply. "And if we kill these humans? If we destroy them today, what happens when their species rises in return?" The room fell silent. Vorak paced toward the front of the bridge. His heavy armor made the deck groan beneath him. He felt like the entire weight of the empire rested on his shoulders. "We know how humans fight," he said quietly. "We saw it in the first hours. They do not fear losing ships. They do not fear losing soldiers. His gaze drifted to the cracked screen. They only fear losing each other. A few officers lowered their heads. They all remembered the human rescue ships, small, weak vessels that rushed into impossible danger just to pull survivors from wrecks. The Warborn never risked resources like that. But humans did, again and again, even when it made no tactical sense. "Commander," the strategist said, trying to speak softly, "we cannot let emotion change our course. We must think logically." Vorak stared at him. "Logical? Tell me, strategist, what is logical about a dying fleet preparing to fire on a force triple its size?" The strategist opened his mouth, then closed it. Vorak wasn't finished. "What is logical about a captain smiling while his ship burns?" he demanded. "What is logical about a species with no empire speaking as if they have already won a war they cannot even fight yet?" No one answered. Because the answer was simple: humans were not predictable. On the human flagship, Captain Elias Ward watched the faint glow of his forward cannons. They flickered, sputtering like candles in a storm. The ship's power grid was failing. The engines were barely alive. The life support system had only minutes before needing emergency patches. But the cannons still held a little charge. That was enough. "Are we really going to fire?" his second officer asked quietly. Ward did not blink. "Yes. We won't survive the counterattack." "I know." The officer hesitated. "Then why fire?" Ward's voice softened. "Because the Warborn need to see something. Something they've never seen before." He looked around at his remaining crew, exhausted, bruised, bandaged, but still working. "They need to see that even when humans have nothing left," Ward said, "we still stand. We still fight. We still push back." The officer swallowed. "And if they fire first?" Ward smiled faintly. "Then they make the final mistake." He turned back toward the window. The Warborn fleet loomed like a wall of metal giants. But he wasn't afraid. Not anymore. He had said everything that needed to be said. He had sent the message he wanted the galaxy to hear. His voice lowered into a whisper none of his crew could hear. "And humanity will answer." Back on the Warborn bridge, the tension climbed until it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Vorak finally spoke. "Open a private channel to the human captain." The room stirred with surprise. "Commander, that is not protocol," a general protested. Vorak snarled, "Nothing about this battle is protocol." The channel opened. Ward appeared again, sweat on his brow, smoke behind him, but his eyes sharp as ever. "Commander Vorak," Ward said. Vorak stepped close to the screen. "Human. Why fire on us when you know it will not change the outcome?" Ward gave a calm, tired smile. "Because you need to understand one thing." "And what is that?" Vorak asked. Ward's eyes burned with a fierce, quiet fire. "You can defeat our fleet," he said softly. "But you cannot defeat our species." The words hit harder than any weapon. Vorak felt his armor grow heavier. His breath slowed. His instincts roared with warning. No enemy in all his years had spoken like this and believed it. One of his officers whispered behind him, "Commander. Their cannons are reaching full charge." The human fleet, broken, smoking, dying, was about to fire. Vorak had seconds to choose. If he attacked now, he would kill them instantly. But if he did, humanity would remember it forever. They would rise. They would come. They would turn every colony, every settlement, every citizen into a soldier. He saw it clearly now, more clearly than any tactical map. This battle was not the war. The real war would start the moment he gave the order. Vorak lifted his head and made his decision. A decision that would change the history of the galaxy. He opened his mouth. The bridge held its breath. Then he gave the order that shocked every Warborn in the room. "Cease all weapons," Vorak said. "Prepare to retreat." Gasps filled the bridge. Because the mighty Warborn Empire, conquerors of 100 worlds, had just chosen to flee from a burning human fleet. And Commander Vorak knew exactly why. He wasn't retreating from strength. He was retreating from what was coming. The order to retreat hit the Warborn flagship like an explosion, silent, invisible, but powerful enough to shake every soldier on the bridge. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. They simply stared at Commander Vorak, unsure whether they had heard him correctly. Warborn did not retreat. Not ever. Not in their entire history. Yet the order stood. "Commander. Retreat?" One general whispered, as if saying the word out loud might break something important. Vorak did not look away from the main screen. "Yes. Pull the fleet back." "But, our honor." Vorak's voice thundered across the room. "Our honor means nothing if our empire burns." Silence swept through the bridge again, deeper and heavier than before. Vorak watched the human ships carefully. Their cannons flickered with unstable light, struggling to charge. They looked like dying stars, but the humans stood firm behind them, ready to fire anyway. Ready to choose death rather than surrender. No other species would do this. And Vorak finally understood that the Warborn Empire had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. Send the order, Vorak repeated, calmer now. All ships are to withdraw from this system immediately. Reluctantly, one officer obeyed. The order spread across the fleet like a strange, unbelievable whisper. Retreat, retreat, retreat. It felt wrong. It felt impossible. But it also felt like survival. On the human flagship, Captain Ward stared as the Warborn fleet shifted. At first, he thought it was a trick, some new attack pattern. But then their engines glowed brighter. Their formations loosened. And ships began to turn away. One by one. Row by row. Ship by massive ship. Ward's second officer gasped. Sir. They're pulling back. Ward's tired smile finally broke through. Good. The officer looked stunned. They could have destroyed us. Why retreat now? Ward breathed slowly, the tension finally leaving his shoulders. Because they finally understood. Not about us. He paused. But about what happens next. The officer swallowed. Humanity. Ward nodded. We sent a message today. A real one. It will reach every colony, every world, every human outpost. And when it does, the Warborn won't be facing just this fleet. His eyes hardened with quiet conviction. They'll be facing all of us. The human crew began cheering, weakly, exhaustedly, through pain and smoke and fear. Some cried. Some just slumped to the floor in relief. Their ship was falling apart around them, but for the first time since the battle began, hope touched the air. Back on the Warborn flagship, hope felt far away. The strategist spoke carefully. Commander, the fleet is moving to withdraw. But the council will demand answers. They will ask why you turned away from victory. Vorak kept his eyes on the human fleet. Then let them ask. I will tell them the truth. And what truth is that? Asked the strategist. Vorak turned to face him fully. His voice was steady, unshaken. We did not face a fleet today. He pointed toward the screen. We faced the start of a species rising. Many officers shifted uncomfortably. The Warborn Empire prided itself on strength. On dominance. On crushing threats before they grew. But Vorak knew this threat had already grown, quietly, silently, waiting for a moment like this. He walked to the center of the bridge. The humans will come for us. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next cycle. But they will come. And when they do. He looked around at his officers. We will wish we had never touched their world. A cold breath spread through the crew. As the Warborn fleet continued turning away, Vorak watched the human flagship flicker with dim lights. It looked like a dying ember. But embers were dangerous. Because they could start fires. Ward's voice played again in Vorak's memory, like a quiet whisper that refused to fade. Humanity is about to wake up. Vorak didn't know what a fully awakened humanity looked like. No one in the galaxy did. But he knew one thing. He didn't want to be the reason the galaxy learned. The bridge lights dimmed as the Warborn engines roared. Their ships formed a retreat path, leaving behind the battleground they had once tried to claim. A junior officer broke the silence. Commander. Some of our ships are refusing to fall back. They believe retreat is shameful. Vorak growled. Remind them that shame is nothing compared to extinction. The officer sent the message with trembling hands. Slowly, the remaining stragglers followed the retreat. On the human flagship, Ward watched the last of the Warborn ships vanish into the dark. Only drifting wreckage remained, silent, broken testaments to the most unlikely standoff the galaxy had ever seen. A medic approached Ward. Captain, you need treatment. You're losing blood. Ward looked down at his sleeve and chuckled weakly. I'll be fine. Humans are stubborn. Yes, sir, the medic said. We noticed. Ward turned back toward the stars. His smile faded, replaced by a serious expression. We survived today, he said quietly. But this isn't over. The Warborn will return someday. Stronger. Angrier. His second officer nodded slowly. And we'll be ready? Ward nodded once. We will be. Because by then. He took a long breath. Humanity will stand together. The damaged human fleet stayed in formation as long as they could. They waited until the Warborn signal vanished completely from the star map. Only then did Ward finally say the words his crew had been waiting to hear. Set course for Earth, he said softly. We need to tell them everything. As the human flagship slowly turned toward home, limping through space like a wounded warrior, Captain Ward knew one truth that echoed across his mind with fierce pride. They might have lost the battle, but they had awakened the giants. And the galaxy would soon learn what that meant. The journey back to Earth was slow, painful, and silent. The human flagship limped through space like a wounded animal, leaving behind a faint trail of sparks and broken metal. Every corridor was filled with smoke and exhausted crew members who had not slept in days. The medbays overflowed. The engineering teams worked constantly to keep the dying ship alive. But despite the damage, despite the fear, despite the cost, the crew felt something warm inside their chests. Victory. Not the kind won through fire and weapons, but the kind won through will. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge, staring at the blue and green sphere growing larger in the window. Earth. Home. The place they had fought for. The place they had almost died for. He felt a quiet strength fill his heart. Send a message to High Command, he said softly. Tell them we're coming in. His second officer nodded and began typing, but her hands were shaking. Not from fear, this time from relief. Ward took a slow breath as Earth's signal reached them. They're waiting for us. As they entered orbit, ships from the Terran Defense Fleet gathered around them, clean, strong vessels untouched by the battle. Rescue ships moved in close, scanning the flagship with bright lights. Medical teams prepared for emergency boarding. Tug ships positioned themselves to support the damaged hull. Ward felt the ship shudder as docking clamps attached. For the first time since the battle began, he allowed himself to relax. Minutes later, he stepped onto a secure platform where admirals, generals, and government representatives waited. Cameras floated silently above them, recording every detail. A crowd gathered beyond the barrier, civilians, engineers, soldiers, doctors, all holding their breath. Ward's uniform was torn. Blood stained his sleeve. Ash covered his hair. He looked like a man who had crawled through fire and somehow walked out alive. An admiral approached him with wide, stunned eyes. Captain Ward. Your report said the Warborn retreated. Is that true? Ward nodded once. Yes, sir. The Warborn Empire retreated. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A government official stepped forward. But how? Their fleet should have destroyed you. Ward looked around at the people waiting for his answer. He saw fear, confusion, hope, emotions mixing like storm clouds. He spoke clearly, loudly enough for every ear and every camera. They retreated because they finally understood humans. The officials exchanged confused looks. Ward continued. We didn't win with weapons. We didn't win with numbers. We didn't win with strength. He lifted his chin. We won because we refused to kneel. A quiet wave of murmurs moved through the crowd. Ward pressed on. The Warborn realized something during the battle. Something important. Something dangerous. He scanned the gathered faces, letting the silence build. They realized humanity doesn't break. The murmurs grew louder. Ward raised his voice. And they realized the moment they attacked us. They united us. Those words struck the crowd like lightning. Engineers looked at each other with fierce pride. Soldiers straightened. Civilians lifted their heads. Even the admirals seemed taller. Humans had been divided for so long, politics, borders, arguments, fears. But hearing that an enemy had backed away because humanity frightened them sparked something ancient and powerful. Hope. Unity. Defiance. One reporter stepped forward, voice trembling. Captain. What do we do now? Ward didn't hesitate. We prepare. The crowd grew quiet. Ward looked toward the stars. The Warborn will return eventually. They lost their pride today. And they will want it back. They will come with new fleets, stronger ships, bigger weapons. A few people swallowed nervously. But when they return, Ward said, they won't find us divided. He stepped forward, eyes burning with determination. We will build ships. We will fortify our borders. We will train. We will unite every colony. We will call home every scientist, engineer, and soldier who wants to defend our species. He paused. And we will stand together. A hush fell over the whole hangar. Even the cameras seemed to go still. Ward took a long breath. Because today, humanity woke up. The crowd erupted. Cheers exploded across the hangar. People pumped their fists into the air. Soldiers shouted. Civilians cried. Dozens rushed forward to shake Ward's hand before guards gently held them back. The sound was overwhelming, waves of human voices rising like thunder. On the Warborn flagship, far across space, Commander Vorak listened to scattered reports from the border as his fleet retreated. Officers spoke quietly, worriedly, about what might happen next. Vorak stared ahead, haunted by the memory of Captain Ward's calm voice. You cannot defeat our species. Vorak whispered to himself, the humans are changing. He felt something heavy settle in his bones. And they are changing because of us. He knew then that his empire had made a great mistake. Not by attacking Earth, but by giving humanity a reason to unite. There would be no peace now. Not truly. Not anymore. When the Warborn fleet finally jumped into deep space, Vorak made a silent vow. He would prepare for the storm he knew was coming. On Earth, Captain Ward stepped out of the hangar and looked up at the night sky. Stars glowed above him, peaceful, distant, waiting. But they no longer looked so far away. Because humanity was awake now. And soon. They would rise. The days after the fleet's return were unlike anything Earth had seen in centuries. News of the Warborn retreat spread across every continent, every colony, every outpost in human space. People woke up earlier. People talked more. People stood straighter. Something had changed, something deep inside humanity's shared heart. Across Earth's sky, new ships slowly began to appear, coming in from distant colonies. Some were old cargo haulers. Some were mining vessels repurposed for travel. Some were sleek research crafts that had never carried a weapon in their lives. But all of them came home for the same reason. They came because of the message Captain Ward sent out before the battle ended, a simple alert, passed through damaged channels, telling every human to listen. And listen they did. Earth's landing platforms became crowded. Spaceports overflowed. Even remote stations received a steady stream of arrivals. Scientists, engineers, volunteers, former soldiers, young students, they all flowed back into humanity's center like rivers feeding the same ocean. Captain Ward found himself in the middle of it all. He tried to rest, but every hour brought new briefings, new leaders, new plans. His name was on every news screen. His message had become a rallying cry. Children drew pictures of him. Colonists sent him letters. Soldiers saluted him even when he walked past in simple clothes. He felt overwhelmed, but he didn't show it. Not now. Not when humanity needed direction more than ever. One morning, Ward stood on a balcony overlooking Earth's largest orbital shipyard. The massive rings glowed with bright white lights. Dozens of half-built ships were being forced into production. Old factories were being reopened. Retired engineers were returning. Thousands of workers moved with urgency that felt almost electric. Beside him stood Admiral Rena Hale, a strict but fair woman with steel gray hair. She had commanded human fleets long before Ward had ever worn a uniform. They're calling it the Great Rally, she said quietly. Every colony is sending materials or ships. Even settlements on the far rim. Ward nodded. People are scared. Hale shook her head. No, Captain. They're united. Ward let those words sink in. United. Humanity had never been that, not truly. But the Warborn had changed everything. Their attack had torn open a wound across every human world. And that wound had forced humanity to become something stronger than it had ever been before. Hale turned toward him. You know the Council wants to give you command of the new combined fleet. Ward sighed. I'm not a politician, Admiral. No, she agreed. You're something more dangerous. You're a symbol. Ward stayed silent for a long moment. He didn't want to be a symbol. He didn't want fame or power. He wanted peace. He wanted safety for his people, but maybe, he thought, symbols were necessary. Maybe this was how species rose. In the Warborn Empire, the mood was very different. Commander Vorak stood inside the Grand War Chamber, facing the High Council. The chamber was carved from dark metal, shaped like a cave meant for giants. Torches of blue plasma burned along the walls. Every Warborn leader stared at him with hard, unforgiving eyes. He reported everything, every word the human captain said, every action the broken fleet took, every sign of human resolve. When he finished, the chamber grew so quiet that Vorak could hear the faint hum of his own armor. One counselor leaned forward. You retreated. Because of fear? Vorak did not blink. Because of understanding. The council erupted into angry growls and shouts, but Vorak stood tall. They are not like the others we conquered, he said. We beat the Zullen. We beat the Gars. We beat the Kroth. But the humans are different. Another counselor slammed a heavy fist onto the table. They are weak. Their worlds are few. Their ships are primitive. Vorak shook his head. They are small, yes. But they do not break. They fight beyond logic. Beyond pain. Beyond fear. He hesitated, then added, and they are uniting. The council fell silent. Vorak pressed on. If we attack again, they will come together. They will grow stronger. They will spread their strength to every colony, every border world. We will face not a species, but a storm. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. They feared no enemy, but they feared the unknown. Vorak took a step forward. We must strengthen our defenses. We must prepare. Because one day, humanity will come. He looked each counselor in the eye. And when they do, they will not come for peace. Far away, on Earth, Ward stood inside a massive command center. Holographic maps of the galaxy floated before him. Red marks showed Warborn territory. Blue marks showed human settlements. There was a great distance between them. But not as great as it once felt. Ward watched the growing blue lights, new ships, new stations, new outposts forming at incredible speed. Lines of connection stretched between them like a web. Humanity was no longer scattered stars. It was becoming a constellation. A young officer approached. "Sir, the colonies are asking for official direction. They want to know our next move." Ward inhaled slowly. The next move. Humanity had awakened. They were mobilizing. Preparing. Uniting. The great rally was only the beginning. Ward placed his hand on the star map. "We build," he said. "We learn. We grow. And when the time comes." He looked toward the far edge of the galaxy, where the Warborn Empire waited. "We march." The officer swallowed. "Toward the Warborn?" Ward nodded. "Toward the future." He straightened his uniform. "Humanity is rising. And nothing will stop us now." The room went silent. Not from fear, but from the weight of destiny settling over all of them. Humanity had changed. And soon, the galaxy would change with it.